Hello everybody and welcome to the Cold Front. I'm Dan Giroux.
And I'm Sean Bailey. Today's topic, as evidenced by our little man Frosty over here, is winter weather. Now, as we get into the winter season, the National Weather Service issues a lot of advisories, warnings, watches, and I did a little bit more research into what goes into issuing these sorts of warnings and watches and how to tell the difference between all of them. And here's your guide to how the National Weather Service issues their winter weather statements. First off, we're going to start off with the winter weather advisory, and that means hazardous weather is imminent. That means it's happening right now. Usually it's issued on top of a winter weather watch or a winter weather warning. So normally we get those confused with the winter weather watch, which is actually more so a forecasting tool. Normally it predicts about the next 12 to 48 hours and whether the possibility of snow and really the possibility of severe winter weather is going to come our way. So that's really the difference between the watch and the advisory. The advisory is now, the watch is in the next day or so. Now, winter weather warning is a little bit of a step up from that. When we have about 4 inches of snow or sleet in the 12-hour period, we'll have a winter weather warning. Also, if during the course of the day we get about 6 inches of snow, that will also merit a winter weather warning. Also, I mean, we normally associate just snow with winter weather warnings. However, we also can have a 1/4 inch of ice formation. And if we have that, we'll also get a winter weather warning, especially for those driving hazards that ice causes. Now, a winter weather warning is often confused with a blizzard warning. However, a blizzard doesn't need the level of snow that a winter weather warning needs. So blizzard doesn't need so much snow, but it does need a lot of wind. And that wind combined with some snow, you definitely do need some snow to have a blizzard, will create some near zero visibility conditions. And that's not good for driving. So blizzard warnings are normally issued for something where it impacts transportation. Now, this also will cause some deep snow drifts as well as a very cold wind chill. Remember, we correlate that wind, and when you have those gusty winds and that cold temperature that you need for snow anyway, you're definitely going to have very low wind chill values as well. Typically, the cutoff for when we have a blizzard warning is winds in excess of 35 miles an hour over a 3-hour period. So difference between blizzard and winter weather warnings means that you don't necessarily have as much snow for a blizzard warning, but you definitely have some. So I hope this has been helpful. This has been your guide to how the National Weather Service issues winter weather statements.
Well, that was very informational, Sean. Now we want to talk a little bit about this because something that I didn't even know was that the wind chill doesn't even affect, it's not like the temperature itself, right. It's the body heat that you're losing. Right, because a lot of people think, yeah, like you said, it's the wind blowing this cold air around at you. It's really blowing away your body heat, and that's what's contributing to it feeling so cold. A lot of weathercasters and a lot of people in the National Weather Service kind of use wind chill as like it feels like, kind of like a heat index in the summertime. But it really isn't the case, and to a degree it's more so wind interacting with your body. And once it gets to a certain point, you can experience frostbite. It doesn't matter if it's necessarily the temperature, it's more so just how strong the winds are. If you have a solid 10-degree temperature, I mean, that's frigid, but if you add in a 30, 40 mile an hour wind, I would not stay out for more than a few minutes. Absolutely, if you ever need to. And you know, that's interesting that this wind chill advisory is mentioned, because there are times when a wind chill advisory can affect things like schools and other businesses, though to a lesser extent. But I know back in my high school, when I think it was my senior year of high school, we actually had 2 days off, 2 days in a row off because of the wind chill. It was below 20 below zero, if that makes sense. And so it was that cold, and I didn't even know back then that we could get off school for that. So that was really exciting. I don't know if you've had any experiences like that. Actually,
my freshman year in Valpo, we had a near wind chill closing of the school. 7:30 in the morning, Calc 2 lab was not fun to walk to when you had 2 feet of snow that just had come in the night before, and it's, well, mostly lake effect. And just the winds, I mean, we got down to -19 for a wind chill. And like you said, they close it for -20. Valpo didn't want to give us that little extra degree leniency, and we had my Calc 3 or Calc 2 lab at 7:30 in the morning, and I was not pleased, and definitely wanted to yell at my professor for not canceling class that day, because for some reason he managed to drive to class.
It happened. Well, but driving isn't a problem with the wind chill as long as you've got heat.
True.
And so I do understand, but it's very important that you do bundle up when you're going outside in a wind chill advisory situation. Even just in the winter in general, it's very important that you just bundle up, because you can really hurt yourself if you let that cold get to you. Now, one of the things that I learned a couple years ago is that when people shovel the snow, some of the people that have problems with it, it's not because of the heavy lifting that they're doing or the exertion that they're putting out or whatever. It's actually the cold that gets to their hearts and their lungs that actually kind of seizes them up a little bit. So it's very important to stay bundled up when you go outside.
Yeah, especially keeping your mouth warm is really what, I mean, that's where your air comes from that goes into your lungs. So obviously keeping your mouth warm is a great thing to do. In addition to that, also keep in mind your extremities. Your hands are usually the first thing to get frostbite when you're outside for long periods of time. And also, speaking of extremities, your head. 50% estimated of your heat, your body heat, is lost through your head. So keeping a hat on it might be a very good choice if you're going outside. So.
But you know, and something that Sean had mentioned to me earlier before the show is that you should be wearing you should be wearing mittens instead of gloves. Now, it makes perfect sense though, because when you wear gloves, all your fingers are put apart. They're spread apart, so you don't have any contact between your hands or between your fingers. But when you have your mittens, you can keep your fingers together, and that kind of helps keep the body heat in one place. Otherwise, all that body heat's just going to leak out like a bad window in a house, you know?
Yeah. And as you alluded to earlier, bundling up is a very good thing. It's how you bundle up too. I know all the fashion rage now is hoodies. Wearing hoodies outside. Cotton isn't very moisture repellent, and it just kind of sits there. So you'll have all this cold water just sitting on you. Definitely isn't going to do anything to warm you up. And for the most part, you should bundle up with layers of moisture repellent sort of clothing. So usually those winter coats are very good because the water just kind of goes whoop.
Yep.
When you start wearing the cotton, I mean the North Face even, you tend to get a lot of just moisture just sitting on you. And that's not a good way to continue, or not a good way to try to warm up.
Nope, that's absolutely right. So definitely bundle up and bundle up properly as we get into the winter months, especially because we want you to stay safe out on campus. A lot of people have to walk outside, so this is very important. Now I want to move on to the difference between winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and the winter storm watch. Because as you alluded to in your segment there, winter storm watch obviously is, you know, it's proceeding to a possible storm.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to get a winter storm warning as a result of that.
Right. It's kind of like the tornado watch, tornado warning scenario. Tornado watch, you have conditions are right for tornado development, but doesn't necessarily mean that we always have a tornado, which would induce a tornado warning. When you get into winter, however, you have the winter storm watch, which means that there's a probable chance that you're going to have snow in the next 12 to 24 hours. When you get into a winter storm warning, that means it's actually happening.
Yeah.
So you have roughly 4 to 6 inches of snow falling normally merits a winter storm warning. Watch, normally they're just on the lookout for significant amounts of snow. And then the advisory, which usually people get confused between the advisory and the watch because they both kind of mean similar things. But really the watch, or the advisory rather, means that just conditions are right as well. But the watch kind of narrows down the time frame.
Yep.
Advisory can go over a longer period of time, whereas a watch is usually within the next 12 to 24 hours.
It's very informational. But something that is extremely interesting to point out is the blizzard warning, okay? Because a lot of people associate blizzards with snow. And while that is true to some extent, it doesn't have anything to do with the amount of snow that's falling. It has everything to do with the wind blowing that snow.
right? I mean, think about it, when you have a windy rain, like wind in a rainstorm, you can't hardly see. Snow is a lot worse to drive in when it comes to with regards to visibility. So blizzard warning really merits not necessarily, like you said, the snow, but the amount of wind and how that's affecting driving. So that's the real big difference between a winter storm warning as well as a blizzard warning, is that winter storm warning focuses on how much snow you're going to get, as opposed to blizzard warning where it's really just the wind. And to some degree, the wind chill comes into play as well when you have blizzard warning. Normally, you have gusts of around, or well, sustained winds rather, of upwards of 35 miles an hour for a prolonged period of time. So ideally, it's not great to go outside for either a blizzard or a winter storm warning, but definitely a blizzard trumps a winter storm warning in most cases.
Because, you know, what you could look at, a blizzard warning is like this, okay? So you might not have snow in the area. Maybe the snow, you did get a few inches of snow, maybe 6 to 12, whatever, and then the storm has already passed, but now you have all this wind. Well, that light, fluffy snow on there can just easily get whipped around, and it can take areas that have already been cleaned, like main highways and streets that have already been plowed and cleared, salted and everything, and then they could cover them right over again and create those dangerous situations. And it'll do that over and over and over again. So that's why it's very important to pay attention to those blizzard warnings, because you could see some very dangerous conditions.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention too about a winter storm warning, ice is also a huge factor as well. If you get even a 1/4 inch of ice, they'll also issue a winter storm warning. Not a blizzard warning, a winter storm warning for ice. I mean, that's horrible to drive on, especially with regards to black ice, which you can't see at night. So in addition to just snow, it's also ice.
Absolutely. So coming up, we're going to talk about how to prepare your car for winter as well, because you don't want to be having car troubles as we get into these winter months, that's for sure. So stay tuned.
We're from Chase Bank and we're at VUTV.
We're men's ultimate frisbee and we're on VUTV.
We're women's ultimate frisbee and we're on VUTV.
We're Chapel Ministries and we're on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jim and I'm on VUTV.
And welcome back to the Cold Front. As I said earlier, our topic is winter weather preparedness. And over 70% of winter-related fatalities occur in automobiles.
It's absolutely right, Sean, and that's why it's very important for your car to be in tip-top shape as we get into the winter months. So I went out and looked to give you a little tips on how to make sure that your car is ready for this winter. So as we get into the winter months, it's important to make sure that your car is in tip-top shape so that you don't get stranded in the winter. Now, I think you already know what this is, so forget about it. In case you get stuck in the snow, it's always good to have a snow shovel. But I want to stress that if you get stuck in a blizzard, don't try and dig yourself out, because that could be very dangerous and you'll only exert more energy than you need to. Only use these in emergency situations to clear the radiator and your tailpipe. Having an emergency kit such as this one that I have right here is very important to have things like jumper cables, a siphon hose, and some spare tools just in case. It's also very important to check the pressure in your tires as well. That's because as the cold air sets in, cold air contracts, which also means that the air in your tires contracts as well. So you're going to need one of these. This is a tire pressure gauge, and basically it says what it does. It checks your tire pressure. And you can pick one of these up at a hardware store for about $1 or $2, so there's no reason to not have one. So checking your tire pressure is easy. All you have to do is take that tire pressure gauge and put it over the valve stem and firmly press. What'll happen is you'll get a reading on here that'll tell you how much pressure you have in your tires, and then you'll know whether you need to inflate the tires more or let a little air out. Now, based on your car, your manual will tell you how much pressure to put in your tires, or your tires will sometimes do that as well. And you don't want to overinflate them, you don't want to underinflate them. You want the pressure in the tires to be just right. If you do find out that your tires need a little added air pressure, you're going to need one of these. It's a simple air compressor. And the nice thing about this model is it plugs right into your cigarette lighter. Got a flat tire? Maybe this can help. This looks like something straight out of NASCAR, and it sounds like it too. But basically, it's an electric wrench that plugs right into your cigarette lighter and takes the chore work out of taking off your lug nuts. You want to make sure that your radiator has enough antifreeze in it for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want your engine to seize in the winter months, but two, it also helps your heater on the inside stay warm as well. Making sure your car has enough windshield washer fluid for the winter months is important as well. And having something that has de-icer in it is also very good because it takes the frost off of your windshield. Taking these simple steps can help make sure that you're prepared for winter. Reporting for the Cold Front, I'm Dan Giroux.
And thanks, Dan, for all those good tips. Now, I mean, we have more problems than just the ice on the road or the amount of snow getting snowed in. I mean, it's just maintenance problems as well. So. Oh,
absolutely. So we want to tell you about a couple of things that if you do get stuck, this is what you should do. Make sure you have a full gas tank because the more likely you have a full gas tank, the less likely you are that you're going to run out of gas in case you run into an emergency situation.
And plus, it's hard for gas stations and severe weather events, I mean, to get to one.
Absolutely.
So, definitely a good idea to never go below half a tank in wintertime.
Absolutely.
But usually in times of severe weather, aka winter weather watches and warnings, definitely good to have a full tank.
Absolutely, because as we see a winter storm watch or warnings, people are going to start to, I don't want to say panic, but they become more aware of the situation and they'll go out themselves and get gas. So then it just becomes a little bit tougher to do it. But if you always have a full gas tank or above half, you're always going to be set, generally speaking. So that's very important. But other than the routine maintenance, if you ever do get stuck, having that winter preparedness kit that I kind of talked about a little bit is going to help you immensely, you know, between flashlights, blankets, all of that stuff will help you survive in case you get stuck somewhere or you're in the middle of nowhere and kind of need help, if your car breaks down, whatever. That stuff is really important.
You know, and a lot of people, and now in our age, are relying on technology as kind of their saving grace. Not so much the case. I mean, typically when we have severe weather, I mean, we saw this over the summer with that strong storm system that blew out pretty much 800,000 people in Chicago without power. So it is always good to have a weather radio or something that isn't connected to something like a cellular
something that
network.
Uses other batteries other than your cellular devices.
Yeah.
So other than that, you want other things to take note of, like candles in there in your winter preparedness kit. You know, one of the things you were mentioning earlier as well is that you don't want to eat snow.
Right.
And because if you're eating snow in the time of emergency, you're actually going to cool your body temperature, and that's something you want to try to avoid.
Right. So having that candle would help to melt the snow. It's also good to have a container to put the snow in and melt. Not a plastic 5-gallon bucket, because that would
you don't
melt
want it to
the bucket,
melt.
and you don't want to drink plastic too. So yeah, definitely having those sort of things also helps out. And like you said, extra batteries are never a bad thing.
Absolutely. So the food obviously being important. They talk about a high-calorie, non-perishable food. Basically, it's just a high-calorie food that doesn't need water, although you'll probably be surrounded by it with a bunch of ice. But again, you want to kind of keep your energy level up so that you're not kind of sinking away. You definitely, if you get stuck somewhere and it's snowing hard or there's a lot of snow around you, you want to keep your tailpipe clear of any snow because you don't want that getting clogged. That can shut down your engine. And you want to keep your radiator clear as well so it can do its work to kind of cool off the rest of the engine and make sure that everything's working properly. But the other very important reason to keep your tailpipe clear is because you don't want to create carbon monoxide in the cabin, because if the tailpipe is blocked up, that air has to go somewhere and it'll just end up going right into the cabin, and you don't want that. So sometimes it's okay to even crack a window as well.
Yeah.
In addition to kind of keep the ventilation in there. It might get a little bit cooler, but you don't always have to keep it open. Just crack it every once in a while. but you also want to make sure that your doors don't freeze shut.
Yeah, having water along the side of your doors and it freezing, you're going to be locked in your car, whether you want to be or not. So definitely make sure you open your door at least regularly so it doesn't freeze shut. The other thing too, with regards to running your heat, usually you do it about 10 minutes every hour you're stuck. So if you were stuck on Lakeshore Drive, like for instance last year, what you do is you'd first clear your tailpipe. Make sure that you're not, like you said, going to get carbon monoxide poisoning. And then run it for 10 minutes to get the heat, trap the heat in the car for a little bit, and then wait for emergency personnel to get to you, or try and get in contact with other people, but mostly stay in your car. And if you're stuck, like out in the middle of nowhere or something.
Another thing I want to stress too, don't try and dig yourself out, because you're just going to be exerting more force than you need to. It's going to wear your body down, it's going to wear you out, and that makes it a more dangerous situation for yourself as well. So just make sure that your radiator's clear and your tailpipe is clear, because those are the things that are really going to help you. Other than that, sit tight in your car, relax. There's no reason to panic. But some other things you should also have is like a bright colored piece of cloth, bandana, something that if people are driving by or walking by, they can notice you, and that kind of signals, hey, you need help.
Yeah, typically it's something red usually too, red or orange.
Red,
you'll tie
orange,
it to your car antenna or something high enough where people could see it, and that will alert people who are emergency personnel who are looking for people that are stranded. They will recognize you and help you out.
You definitely don't want something that's white. That would be bad.
Camouflage is not a good survival.
Well, if you use the green and the green and brown camouflage, that might be okay. It's still not a bright color that necessarily stands out, but it's going to contrast to some of the whites and greens.
Right.
But other things that you want to make sure of: staying in the car, obviously, running the car sparingly. Just keep yourself safe at all costs. And you know the best way to avoid all of this, Sean?
Not drive.
Don't go out in it at all. That is absolutely correct. So if you unless you absolutely, positively, 100%, no, 125% have to go out, don't go out. Stay inside, relax, have family game night, enjoy the family time, because you don't need to go out into that storm if you don't have to.
Perfect example, everyone saw pictures of Lakeshore Drive. We were warning of that storm 2-3 days in advance in terms of its severity. So people definitely knew the word, but when you choose to ignore it, you're not going to have a happy ending.
And actually, that's another important thing. If you're in places like Chicago or whatever, and you want to go back to your house and you think you can beat the storm, forget about it. You know what? Hunker down in Chicago, stay the night, get a hotel room. It'll probably be cheaper in the end, rather than having to spend for the cost of getting your car out or getting you rescued or anywhere, or even the cost of losing your life. God forbid that happen. I wouldn't expect it to. But you want to just avoid it at all costs.
Right. And Chicago does have a very, very pretty skyline in the snow. So
it does.
Enjoy that. Don't feel like you need to be in a rush to beat weather, because truth be told, Mother Nature always wins.
Absolutely. So coming up after the break, we're going to wrap things up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Brendan Kinney, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Rachel Batista, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Dave Klein, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Brandon Spinner, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Lisa Meadows, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Chelsea Zeman, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Logan Cohen, I'm on VUTV.
Welcome back to the Cold Front, and as we wrap some things up, we want to talk to you a little bit about lake effect snow. For us meteorologists, at least for me anyways, I really love lake effect snow, but not a lot of people know what it is, and it's a big part of our winters here.
Yeah, it's fairly hard to predict too. A lot of meteorologists that come around here, it's very hard to grasp exactly what conditions are going to be right for lake effect events. Typically, it happens early on in the season too. November and December, when the lake is really warm, that's when we have that cold air come over, and that's really what causes this low-level sort of phenomena where we have lake effect snow. It also creates a lot of issues with how it comes down the lake. It's called fetch. And normally when we have winds going straight down the Lake Michigan, and it's coming like right down, Valpo will see some of that lake effect snow. Normally it hits more South Bend because the way the low pressure systems tend to track, it's more so we have northwesterly flow over the lake, and that would bring those snow showers over South Bend and southwest Michigan.
Oh, absolutely. But when we get that northerly flow just right, and it comes right on top of us, bam, you get 2 feet of snow overnight. That happened a couple years ago. And I remember that was actually during when I was in my first weathercasting class under Ginger Z, and everybody was kind of saying, oh, maybe 4 to 6 inches. And then that night we got hammered with almost 2 feet of snow. That was great.
That was my 7:30 in the morning calc lab.
I know, yeah, I knew exactly what you were referring to back then. So
it's a tricky subject, and I mean, it's very interesting to meteorologists because there's a lot of factors that go into it. Typically, though, mainly is the wind direction and the temperature contrast.
Yep.
And it's not only in Lake Michigan that it happens. Also, Lake Erie has had.
Oh, yeah.
Buffalo, New York, is the lake effect snow capital of the world. It basically gets pounded both by Lake Erie, because it's right along the lake there, as well as Lake Ontario, which is just to the north of it. So, I mean, as much as we hate lake effect snow, I feel like
I never said I hated lake effect snow.
I mean, generally, public does not care for excessive amounts of random snow that just appear out of nowhere.
And definitely don't forget about Lake Superior. One of our former graduates, Dustin Bonk, is actually in Marquette right now, and he's already learning a lesson on lake effect snow. So, well, actually, it wasn't lake effect in particular. It is just synoptic snow. But even still, he's learning lessons about snow up there. So it definitely happens there, and anywhere, especially around the Great Lakes, it definitely plays a big role in that. So as we close things out, thank you very much. Stay safe this winter, because that's what this whole thing was about. We want you to stay safe, but again, have fun with this.
I mean,
have fun with your winter, absolutely. And if you guys have any tips or ideas that you'd like to be shared on the show, whether it's something you want to learn about or just some interesting fun facts, please let us know. ValpoVUTV@gmail.com. For the Cold Front, I'm Dan Giroux.
And I'm Sean Bailey. Have a great day.